Hello everyone, I'm Ashley at the Silver Bay Public Library, and I am back once again with story time for all of you. Today we actually have a few of our newer books that I'm going to read. We don't have many people coming in to read these books, so I will share them with you. I hope you guys remember that we are open and we are accepting visitors, and we would love to have you stop by and get some wonderful new books to read during the week, over the weekend, on a trip, whatever it may be. A few of our books today center around the theme of accepting oneself, though we also have one that's a bit wacky just for the fun of it. But our first book is a brand new one called Sulwe by, I can't quite read the name, by Lupita Nyong'o and illustrated by Vashti Harrison. Once again, I apologize if I messed up the names, but I love the cover of this book, so I wanted to read it right away. So let us dive right in. Sulwe was born the color of midnight. Sulwe dreamed of being the same color as her sister. She wanted real friends too. Wait, I've skipped a few pages, I'm sorry. She looked nothing like her family, not even a little, not even at all. Mama was the color of dawn, Baba the color of dusk, and Mick, her sister, was the color of high noon. Hardly anyone at school looked like Sulwe either. People gave her sister Mick pet names like Sunshine and Ray and Beauty. People gave Sulwe names like Blackie and Darky and Night. Sulwe felt hurt every time, so she hid away while her sister made lots of friends. Sulwe dreamed of being the same color as her sister. She wanted real friends too. So she got the biggest eraser she could find and tried to rub off a layer or two of her darkness. That hurt. She crept into Mama's room and helped herself to her makeup. Oh no, she would hear about this from Mama. Sulwe decided to work from the inside out and ate only the lightest, brightest of foods. Bananas, popcorn, mushrooms, bread. With a stomachache, she went to bed early and turned to God for a miracle. Dear Lord, why do I look like midnight when my mother looks like dawn? Please make me as fair as the parents I'm from. I want to be beautiful, not just to pretend. I want to have daylight, I want to have friends. If you hear me, my Lord, and would like to comply, may I wake up as bright as the sun in the sky. Amen. When Mama came in to wake her from school the next morning, Sulwe rose to find not a trace of daylight in her midnight skin. Sulwe told Mama everything. Mama asked, "What is your name?" "Sulwe," she muttered. "And what does it mean?" "Star," she whispered. Brightness is not in your skin, my love. Brightness is just who you are. As for beauty, Mama said, rubbing Sulwe's stomach, the way she always did to comfort her, you are beautiful. Sulwe sighed. Well, you are beautiful to me, but you can't rely on what you look like to make you feel beautiful, my sweet. Real beauty comes from your mind and your heart. It begins with how you see yourself, not with how others see you. Now, up you get and out you go. How could she, as dark as she was, have brightness in her? How could she have beauty when no one but her mother seemed to see it? How could she be a star? That night, a shooting star appeared at Sulwe's window. "The night sent me," the star said. "Come with me." Sulwe hopped onto the star, and off they went. Long ago, at the beginning of time, said the star, there was night and day, and they were sisters. They loved each other very much, but people didn't treat the sisters the same. Lovely, nice, pretty. People gave day pet names, such as. People gave night names like scary and bad and ugly. She felt hurt every time. Well, Night got fed up and walked right off of Earth. Day stayed behind and enjoyed making everybody happy in the sun. But then Day grew too long. Day began to really miss her sister. So did everyone else. There had to be a way to get her back. Day set off to find Night, and she did it. I miss you, said Day. I miss you too, said Night, but you don't know what it's like to be treated badly for being dark. You're right, I don't, Day replied, but what I do know is that we need you just the way you are. Come and see. Night returned, and the people rejoiced. We need the darkest night to get the deepest rest. We need you so that we can grow and dream and keep our secrets to ourselves. The stars chimed in. Brightness isn't just for daylight. Light comes in all colors, and some light can only be seen in the dark. While day had a golden glow, with night everything had a silver sheen, elegant and fine. Day told her sister, when you are darkest is when you are most beautiful. It's when you are most you. Could it be that night did not need to change, not even a little, not even at all? Now that night and day were back together, a little bit of night returned to day in the form of shadows, and a little bit of day returned to night in the form of moonlight. They were inseparable from that moment on, and promised to celebrate the brightness in each other, whether people chose to see it or not. You see, the star explained, we need them both on their sunniest day and their darkest night, and every shade in between. Together they make the world we know, light and dark, strong and beautiful. Solway rose the next morning, beaming. There would be no hiding anymore. She belonged out in the world, dark and beautiful, bright and strong. And if she ever needed a reminder of her brightness, she could look up at the sky on the darkest night to see for herself. Solway felt beautiful inside and out. And that's all there is to say. And that was the story of Solway, who realized she is beautiful and strong just the way she is, just like all of you are as well. Our next book is called Alma, and How She Got Her Name. It's by Juana Martinez Neal. Alma Sofia Esperanza Jose Pura Candela had a long name. Too long, if you asked her. My name is so long, Daddy, it never fits, Alma said. Come here, he said. Let me tell you the story of your name. Then you decide if it fits. Sophia was your grandmother, he began. She loved books, poetry, jasmine flowers, and of course me. She was the one who taught me how to read. There's a picture of the grandma. I love books and flowers, and you too, Daddy. I am Sophia. Esperanza was your great-grandmother, he continued. She hoped to travel but never left the city where she was born. Her only son grew up to cross the 7 seas. Wherever her sailor son went, so did Esperanza's heart. The world is so big, I want to go see it, Daddy. You and me together. I am Esperanza. Jose was my father, Alma's daddy continued. He was an artist with a big family like many people had back then. Early each morning he walked to the mountains and the plazas to paint everyday life. Sometimes I went along. Your grandfather taught me to see and love our people. I wake up every day and I draw a lot too. This morning I drew a kitty for you, Daddy. I am Jose. Pura was your great aunt. She believed that the spirits of our ancestors are always with us, watching over us. When you were born, she tied a red string around your wrist, a charm to keep you safe. Hello, Pura. It's me, Alma. Candela was your other grandmother. She always stood up for what was right. I am Candela. I love the story of my name. Now tell me about Alma, Daddy. Where does that come from? I picked the name Alma just for you. You are the first and the only Alma. You will make your own story. Alma Sofia Esperanza Jose Pura Candela. That's my name, and it fits me just right. I am Alma, and I have a story to tell. And that is the story of Alma and how she got her last name. A beautiful name that she may not have thought fit her, but in the end it really did, because it connected her to her roots. So never be ashamed of your name either. Our next story is going to be a classic. It's from the Treasury of Classic Stories, and it's a bunch of favorite animal stories. The one we are going to read is called The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. Alright, there's not too many pictures, but I'll show you anyway, if you can see them through the video, of course. But The Ugly Duckling. It was a beautiful summer's day, and the sun shone over the meadow. Down among the long grasses near the edge of the brook, a mother duck quacked happily to herself. She was sitting patiently on her nest, waiting for her eggs to hatch. She waited, and then crack, 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 crack. One by one they started to hatch. Soon the mother duck was surrounded by a brood of beautiful, fluffy ducklings. Peep, 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 they quacked. They were very pleased to see their mother at last. Mother duck stood up to check that they all had the right number of wings and webbed feet, and then quacked in dismay. The biggest egg still hadn't hatched. Mother duck settled back on the nest and waited patiently. She waited and waited, but nothing happened. Then she waited a bit more, and still nothing happened. "I'd leave it if I were you," said a passing duck noisily. "Those big ones rarely hatch. You're wasting your time." But the mother duck refused to listen. She sat in her nest and waited and waited. She waited for a very long time. Then finally there was an enormous crack, and out tumbled the biggest, ugliest duckling you can possibly imagine. That afternoon, Mother Duck took her family for a swimming lesson. "Quack, quack," she called as she splashed into the water. "Follow me." Plop, 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 plop. One by one the ducklings jumped in after her. Even the big, ugly duckling, who made quite a splash. Soon all of them were swimming beautifully, and the big, ugly duckling swam best of all. The following morning, Mother Duck washed and groomed all her ducklings, and then took them to the farmyard. "Don't stray away from my side," she told the ducklings, "and whatever you do, please be polite." To the big duck sitting on the island in the middle of the pond. "She's the oldest and most important duck in the yard." The farmyard was a very big and scary place. Hens scratched around in the dirt, a cat waited to pounce, and big ducks looked down their beaks as the ducklings waddled by. "My, what beautiful ducklings," said the old duck kindly. "All except that big ugly one," laughed another duck. All the other ducks turned and stared at the ugly duckling. Soon they were all laughing at him, even the oldest, most important duck. Mother Duck and her ducklings settled down to their new life in the farmyard. All of them were very happy, except for the ugly duckling. He was sad because all the other farmyard animals laughed whenever they saw him. So one day, the ugly duckling decided to run away from the farmyard. He didn't stop until he reached a marsh where wild ducks lived. But when the wild ducks saw him, they laughed and laughed, so the ugly duckling ran on. He ran over fields and meadows until he reached a rickety old house. The door had a hole in it, so the ugly duckling slipped in. An old woman lived inside the house with her cat and her hen. She didn't have much, but she was happy because the cat purred so nicely and the hen laid her eggs. "Oh, goody," cried the old woman when she saw the duckling. "Now I shall have duck eggs." But of course the ugly duckling didn't lay any eggs, so the hen and the cat chased him away. The ugly duckling returned to the marsh, where he was alone once more. Fall arrived and the leaves fell from the trees. Then winter came and a cold wind blew snowflakes across the marsh. One evening a flock of beautiful white birds with long, graceful necks flew over the marsh. They were swans. "I wish I could fly with them," whispered the ugly duckling. The winter grew colder and colder. The ugly duckling had to swim in circles to stop the water from freezing over. Then one night he fell asleep, and when he awoke, he was stuck fast in the ice. Luckily for him, a passing farmer rescued him and took him home to his warm house. When the ugly duckling had warmed up and was feeling much better, the farmer's children tried to play with him, but the ugly duckling was so scared by their excited shrieks that he flapped away in terror. In his rush, he knocked over a churn of milk. The angry farmer's wife clapped her hands, and he flapped into a sack of flour. The farmer's wife screamed. The children laughed and tried to catch him. The terrified duckling could take no more and fled. The poor, sad duckling returned to the frozen marsh, and there he remained throughout the long, harsh winter. Then one morning he awoke to a warm golden sun. As he stretched out to warm his feathers, he heard the sweet call of a cuckoo. Spring had arrived. The ugly duckling spread out his wings and flew high into the air. He flew to a large garden where willow trees dipped their long branches into a smooth pond. On the pond swam 3 beautiful white birds with long, graceful necks. It was the swans he had first seen so long ago. The ugly duckling was so lonely that he decided to go and say hello. "They will send me away for being so ugly, but I don't care," he said to himself, and so he landed by the pond and bent his head as he waited for the swans to chase him away. But when he saw his reflection in the smooth water, he gasped out loud. For you see, he was no longer an ugly gray duckling. Instead, he was a beautiful white swan. "Come join us," called the youngest swan. "Yes, please do," added the others, and they all swam around the ugly duckling, admiring his feathers and graceful arched neck. "You really are the most beautiful swan of them all," decided the oldest swan. The ugly duckling ruffled his feathers with joy. Finally he felt he belonged and was happy at last. And there's a photo of him and the other swans. And that's the story of the ugly duckling. I don't think he was very ugly at first. I think he was very adorable. But you never know who people are going to turn out to be. And even if it's just on the inside, everyone is beautiful. And our last story is a bit wacky. I think this one is going to be a fun change of pace, as these were very important stories to hear, but maybe not the most intriguing ones out there. This one's called Fairy Science by Ashley Spears, or Spires, I'm not sure. I bet this is going to be very wacky, so let's just jump right in. Esther does not believe in magic. This is unusual because Esther is a fairy, and fairies are all about magic. They use magic wands, and they mix magic potions. Some fairies even make magical fairy dust. Shaboom. Esther is pretty sure that's just dandruff. She is the only fairy in Pixieville who believes in science. Esther prefers facts, data, and hard evidence to wishing on the stars. Her room is her laboratory. Unfortunately, the only thing they teach in fairy school is magic. Class is very frustrating for Esther. As her teacher says, "Fairies were born when a drop of rain passed through a rainbow and landed on a flower bud. When the flower bloomed, the first fairy took flight." And from his petal, Esther responded, "As you can see from this chart, it is more likely that fairies as a species evolved in response to influences such as environment and diet." Esther can't help observing the world differently from everyone else. Where other fairies see a path to hidden gold, Esther sees lights and water colliding. "Follow the rainbow," says one fairy, and Esther responds, "The water helps us see all the colors that are hidden in the sunlight. That's dispersion." Where they see a dangerous omen, she sees condensation, explaining when the temperature is just right, water droplets are suspended in the air. Where they see faces of spirits, she sees erosion. Rocks, such as these, get worn away by water and wind. The faces are just your imagination. The bird doesn't think anyone's listening. Esther can't wait to teach the scientific method to her fairy mates. Ask a question, do some research to find out more, make a hypothesis, a fancy word for guess, do experiments, study the results, draw a conclusion, but everyone just says she could use magic instead. She shows them the periodic table, a list of all the elements that make up the whole universe. But fairies respond with, "No, not all of them. Where are our dreams and wishes and sunshine?" She even demonstrates gravity. Gravity is why things fall down instead of up. But the fairies can go up, so they must be magic. Esther gets frustrated. They just don't get it. And then a bunch of leaves fell on her head, and that was definitely gravity. She thinks, there's definitely something wrong with this tree. The fairies do their best to help. They cast spells, they make magic talismans, they even do a mystical moonlight dance. But nothing works. The tree keeps on wilting. Esther asks a question. Why is it wilting? She does some research, makes a hypothesis, tries some experiments. She studies her results, and at last, Esther draws a conclusion. Eureka! The tree needs more sun! Simbalsu, Simbalsi, I'm doing some magic to save this tree, cries their teacher. Now Esther will wait for the sun to do its work. Sitting through seasons and waiting and waiting. It took a while, but the tree is looking positively perky. She did it. Esther has proven the power of science. Miss Pellypetal did it. Magic saved the tree. Because she said she would cast a spell on it. So Esther at least thought she proved science, but maybe not. She might not have changed other fairies' minds, but Esther has inspired some questions. Some people realized that it was Esther who did it. And that's where every good scientist starts. And she began to teach others how science works. And that is this cute little story of fairy science, and whether it was truly magic or science. What do you guys think? Do you think magic is real? Well, anyway, that is enough for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the stories this time around. Make sure to come into the library to check out the wonderful books we have. Like I said, these two are new books. Actually, so is this one. So there are lots of many fun, new, exciting books for you guys to check out. So please make sure to stop by, continue reading as part of the summer reading program, and I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. We do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so make sure to check in next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.